Hi there everyone! Welcome to the Weekly Roundup, your go-to for an overview of the latest data science news stories. This week we're talking about how Elon Musk plans to make the Twitter algorithm open source, how AI is being used to decrypt communications in the war in Ukraine, and more exciting stories. So don't forget to subscribe to stay in the loop, and let us know in the comments what your favorite data news story of the week is. Elon Musk has purchased Twitter for $44 billion after a long consideration process and several rounds of negotiation. Since the start of his plans, he's been very clear about his intentions to open source the Twitter algorithm, citing free speech as one of the key drivers of humanity having a positive future. Let's have a closer look at what this algorithm is and what it would mean to make it open source. You can view your Twitter feed in two main ways. One is the traditional chronological feed where you have a latest tweets first view, and the other is an algorithmic feed that prioritizes content it thinks might be more useful or interesting to you. This algorithm was introduced in 2016 and has been the default setting ever since. This is what Musk intends on making open source in an effort to promote transparency, and he claims that this is a step towards truly free speech, free from technological or manual manipulation. So, what is this algorithm and how does it work? On a very basic level, the Twitter algorithm, which has many working parts, uses deep learning to assess whether a tweet would be engaging to you based on three main things. Firstly, the tweet itself. How recent is it? Does it contain images or video? And how many likes, retweets, and other engagement signals does it have attributable to it? Secondly is the tweet's author. The algorithm looks at your past interactions with the author, the strength and origin of your relationship with this person, and how often you search for them or read their tweets. And finally, the algorithm looks at you. How much you use Twitter, what kinds of tweets you like and retweet, your search history, your location, and any other information Twitter has about you. Based on all of these pieces of information, Twitter assigns each tweet on your timeline a score, and then orders tweets according to that score to provide you with your algorithmic feed. The main argument in favor of open sourcing the algorithm is that people will be able to spot unfair practices and call Twitter out on them. On the other hand, many experts have expressed doubt around the value of making the algorithm open source. Firstly, this is because we don't have insight into the policies driving the technical decisions made by developers. As Vladimir Filikov, professor of computer science at the University of California, Davis puts it, open sourcing something by definition means you can see the code, but it doesn't mean you can understand the policies or influence the policies that lead to that code. Secondly, this is because Twitter processes not only around 500 million tweets per day, but also processes every interaction related to both tweets and user profiles, and feeds it all into the algorithm. Experts argue that this data, which is the lifeblood of the algorithm, is both vital to understanding the algorithm and also inherently unreleasable to the public because of privacy concerns. Lastly, some experts argue that even with open sourcing the algorithm, the vast majority of people don't understand code, never mind the intricacies of deep learning, and so are simply not going to get value from having access to the algorithm itself. The conversation surrounding making the Twitter algorithm open source is multifaceted and still developing. So what do you think? Should Twitter make the algorithm open source? Let us know in the comments below. Our next story takes a look at one of the innovative ways scientists are managing climate change, which is by injecting rocks with CO2. As bizarre as it sounds, the practice, called carbon sequestration or carbon capture, is now viewed by the scientific community as an essential part of mitigating climate change. This week, a team of researchers, including authors from Stanford University, California Institute of Technology, Purdue University, and NVIDIA, released a study in which they develop an AI-based system called UFNO to make carbon sequestration faster and more precise. Based on the UNet neural network and the Fourier neutral operator architecture known as FNO, UFNO provides more accurate predictions of gas saturation and pressure buildup. Compared to using a cutting-edge convolutional neural network for the task, UFNO is twice as accurate while requiring just a third of the training data. Simply put, the system uses machine learning to simulate pressure levels during the injection process, and has been able to almost double the accuracy of certain tasks, allowing geoengineers to select better sites, adjust pressure levels more accurately, and see whether certain rocks are likely to fracture at certain levels of sequestration. Our next story takes a look at how new languages could soon be coming to Alexa, as Amazon have just released a massive open source speech dataset in 51 languages. The company is encouraging developers to add more languages to the functionality of their third-party apps and plugins, and plans to hold a competition to spur on this development. Massive, as Amazon have named the dataset, is a parallel dataset, meaning that every phrase is recorded in all 51 languages. This enables models to learn shared representations of phrases with the same intents, regardless of language, facilitating cross-linguistic training on natural language understanding tasks. This push towards a more multilingual approach in third-party apps hints at Amazon's plan to scale their natural language technology across the globe, and we can't wait to see the growth of multilingual AI technology progress at Amazon. Our final story of the week takes a look at how AI is being used in modern military intelligence. Natural language processing is a hot topic at the moment, and it's seen a wave of innovations and advancements over the last few months. One of the latest applications of natural language processing AI is how it's being used to process intercepted Russian communications in their occupation of the Ukraine. An AI tool developed by a company called Primer has been capturing, transcribing, translating, and analyzing intercepted Russian communications, highlighting the potential for the use of AI in intelligence operations. As noted in a recent report on mining open source intelligence using AI, the amount of open source intel is impossible for anyone to process, which is why AI is increasingly helping the intelligence community to bridge the gap between information and insight. In recent years, AI has become more capable of summarizing or answering questions using text, thanks to a particular kind of large machine learning model known as a transformer. A result of this development is that AI programs have been created that can generate coherent news articles and even write working computer code. Emily Harding, a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, notes that AI deployed in intelligence contexts will likely have to overcome the same hurdles as AI used elsewhere, things like good quality training data and algorithmic bias. But that battlefield AI will also face the added challenge of building trust in its conclusions, given that many decisions in this context can be life or death. The future growth of battlefield AI looks certain, with the US military investing millions of dollars into AI field signal analysis and creating Titan, the Tactical Intelligence Targeting Access Node, to build central hubs on battlefields for receiving and processing data. Experts have noted that military AI might become a cat-and-mouse game, with efforts to backsolve and mislead algorithms becoming just as important as the algorithms themselves. As this kind of technology continues to develop, the use of battlefield AI will raise serious ethical concerns about using autonomous systems on the battlefield that the AI community will need to grapple with. That's all for this roundup. Thanks for joining us. Have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time for your dose of the latest and greatest in data science.